The Second Amendment says that we can limit who can own a weapon. They can limit what kind of gun you can own.
America is with us in demanding common sense gun safety.
It's about reducing the deaths from gun violence.
If McConnell wants to vote against gun safety legislation, let him vote against it. But reconvene the United States Senate. Let's have that discussion. Let's have that vote.
People say to me, did Donald Trump cause those folks to be killed? Well, no, of course, he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition.
You know, for all the disagreements that they have on various policies, Democrats do seem to agree on one thing: the need for stricter gun control laws in the United States. There were 16 candidates at that forum in Iowa this weekend, organized by Everytown for Gun Safety. At one point, Andrew Yang broke down listening to a mom describe losing her 4-year-old daughter, who was killed by a stray bullet in the presence of her twin brother. Yang described that moment today on Morning Joe.
I was just with my kids, and I hugged them a little extra tight yesterday. It's just a human response, and this sort of phenomenon cannot be allowed to be possible in this country.
With such broad-based support for gun control measures, just at least baseline things like background checks and an assault rifle ban, combined with the White House seemingly paralyzed on the matter, one has to ask, have the Democrats found a slam-dunk political issue where they have a distinct advantage over Donald Trump? Joining the conversation, senior writer for Politico and MSNBC political contributor Jake Sherman. So let me ask you that question. Is this, or at least should it be, if it's articulated properly, a slam dunk for the Democrats?
Well, I mean, the issue hasn't shifted a lot over the last couple of years. We've had a number of huge shootings, obviously, and this political issue has begun to build, frankly, over the last decade, since 2009, 2010, 2011. So it might be reaching a boiling point, but the crux of the issue is this. Can Donald Trump, if you want something to get done, the question is, can Donald Trump take a position and hold a position for an extended period of time? If he can't, I mean, the implications of not doing anything, according to Republicans and Democrats that I talk to, the tail is a lot longer, right? Because, I mean, this is going to be an issue where that if you don't do something, Democrats say and Republicans fear that you could begin to alienate a generation of voters. But remember, immigration reform has a huge poll numbers across the country. This gun control also does. So Congress has been ignoring widely popular issues for some time, so this is nothing new.
Let's look at the poll, okay? Because this was a Morning Consult Political Voters. This is just for the assault weapons ban. Okay, 70% overall. Right, 70%. We knew there was after Newtown 90% plus on background checks. Democrats 85%. But there is even a majority among Republicans, Jonathan, even a majority there. There is a consensus in America. They are sick and tired of innocent people getting blown away in Walmarts, in schools, in nightclubs, everywhere you go and you think you're safe.
But is there a consensus among Republicans in the Senate, and particularly Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell? I mean, and that's the issue here.
See, I don't know if I agree with that. Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell. President Trump needs to pick up the phone, call Mitch McConnell, and say, because Mitch McConnell's not going to do it. Does anybody here think Mitch McConnell's going to do it?
This is the moment where the president, who is wildly popular among Republicans, could provide cover for Republican senators, and that includes the Senate Majority Leader. If he really goes to bat here, and he says on Friday, when he left the White House for his vacation, which he is now on, he suggested that he was going to support some sort of background check measure, that this was the time to act upon some sort of gun control action, some sort of legislation. And if he does forge for it, and maybe it's not enough, maybe it's not going to be about the assault rifles, that's assault weapons, that's not really in the conversation on the Hill, but maybe there can be something done here. The question is the political momentum going to remain in the couple of weeks before the Senate actually gets back to Washington? And is the president going to follow through on his commitment this time? Because remember, he said something similar after the Parkland shooting a year ago. He said he would do this, and then he backed off.
I think there's a real danger for Republicans on this issue because you look at political issues when the Republican establishment is out of line with their base. And on this issue, I think that they actually are increasingly out of line. I did focus groups last year in Mississippi and Tennessee, and I was actually shocked because these were tables where everyone at the table owned a gun, and they were all for what they wanted, what they asked for, common sense gun reform.
Yeah, did any of them have a magazine with 100 bullets in it?
They wanted to ban high-volume magazines. They didn't want teachers to have to start going and being armed to school. At least, thank goodness, we haven't had to revisit that debate this time. Yes. But they were for having universal background checks, and the system is broken right now. Republican politicians are not eager to fix what's broken in the current system to make it work so that we don't have tragedy after tragedy. I hate to say it, we know this is going to happen again.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so
of course we do. And that's where you go right to the argument that Joe Biden is making, and he put it down in the Washington Post on banning assault weapons. I'm sorry, in the New York Times, banning assault weapons works. If we cannot rise to meet this moment, it won't just be a political failure. It will be a moral one. It will mean that we accept the next inevitable tragedy, that we are desensitized to children running from schools and bodies littering parking lots, that our outpouring of thoughts and prayers will grow increasingly hollow. It is not a complex argument to make.
It is not.
And you have a ready audience.
It's not a complex argument. Joe Biden is probably one of the most eloquent people to speak on these issues, given, he was around in the previous crime bills and previous bans and everything else like that. I go back to sort of what you were mentioning and what Jonathan was mentioning. Here's the thing. It's not that Mitch McConnell is the evil puppeteer in all of this, but it's not like I'm usually ever on his side on these issues. But from Mitch McConnell's perspective, it's like, look, I've got my entire Senate caucus here. They don't trust you, President Trump. They don't trust you to follow through with things. They don't trust you to actually cover us if we try to put through this legislation. If the president could be believed to be consistent, if he said, look, I want background checks. Mitch, I want this to happen right now. I will make every commercial necessary to cover the backs of every single person in the caucus who supports this, then it would happen tomorrow. It would happen as soon as they get back. But they don't trust that the president will have their back. And what they're worried about is next year being primary from the right or being attacked by some Democrat because the president failed to provide them with the cover that they need. It's a shame that we have to have these calculations when people are dying, but that's what I believe the Republicans are concerned about, and it's a legitimate concern.
Well, it is also, there is no doubt about this, Jake Sherman, a moral imperative. That is one thing I think we can all agree on, that if there's anything that Congress, that our elected officials are supposed to do, it is to keep us safe. But on Capitol Hill, where's the conversation going to go?
Well, I can tell you behind the scenes that a lot of Republicans tell me exactly what you guys were just saying there on the set, which is they recognize the issue has gone away from them, that the public is not where they are, and they need some cover, some political cover to get something done. And it couldn't be overstated here that if the president took a firm position and held it, he would be able to bring Republicans along. And I think Republicans say there is room for them to get things done. A background check bill would be a heavy lift still, but it could get done. And I think Republicans increasingly are beginning to feel like there is a moral imperative, especially in the Senate. The House is drawn into very partisan districts. The Senate is obviously, people represent purple states, and it's much more popular in the Senate it would be much easier in the Senate to get something done.
I'll say this about political cover. Say that to somebody who's had to run for cover and know somebody. It's almost getting to the point where everybody is going to know somebody who, well, of course, everyone relates to going to a Walmart. Everybody relates to their child being in a school. I mean, the political cover part of this, whatever happened to a little bit of backbone and a little bit of moral compass? Jake Sherman, thank you for spending time with us. Much appreciated from Capitol Hill. Very quiet there. After the break, Donald Trump